What do I mean by wage slavery? I mean a very pernicious thing that's widespread throughout our society. I mean doing meaningless work just to pay the bills. Going to a grinding 9-to-5 job that you don't really value. Having an impact on the world, you don't know what it is or why you're doing it, but you're doing it because you have to do it, because you got to feed yourself, feed your family, pay the bills, keep the electricity running. And that's how you basically go through life. Under this situation, you're unable to contribute to society in any meaningful, creative way because you're doing this grinding work for somebody else. And you are cornered by needs to pay bills. You have no capital which you can use to pursue your own passion or life purpose. You have no chance at re-education, no chance for doing personal development or spiritual development. And so you get stuck. You get stuck being someone else's puppet, doing unconscious work for them, spending your entire life, the majority of your life, doing unconscious work and spreading evil. Why spreading evil? Because when you're working for somebody else doing grinding work, it's not just that you're doing boring grinding work for them, you're actually helping them to climb this pyramid scheme, which is society. I'll get to that a little bit later and explain what that is. But you're helping them to climb that. You're not helping them to really raise consciousness or to improve mankind. Most work that's done is really done out of selfishness, and it's done to manipulate others to extract money from them for selfish purposes. That's what you're doing for your boss. Not all the time, but in a lot of cases. You certainly aren't tapping into your greatest capacity as a human being, your creative genius. You're not using your creative genius almost at all. And that's what's so sad about this situation of wage slavery, is that when I look at people in society and how they work, what I see that 90% of people are not tapping into nearly what they could be, what they could really contribute to the world. Visionary scientists, and they could be visionary inventors, and they can be people who could help the world lift everybody up. And they're not doing this simply because they're stuck in wage slavery. And once you do get stuck, it gets very hard to escape this situation. Our work in society is deeply dysfunctional. And notice that work takes up a large chunk of your time. In fact, for most people, it'll take up over 50% of all their waking time in their life will be devoted to work. But the kind of work you'll be doing is not going to be the kind of work that you're passionate about, or that you find meaningful at all, or that contributes in a positive way to mankind. And of course, in doing this slave work, you are not going to be given time for meditation. You are not going to be given time to take retreats. You are not going to be given time for psychedelics. You're not going to be given time for inner work. You're not going to be given time for personal development. You're not going to be given time for taking care of your kids. You're not going to be given time for improving your health. You're not going to be given time for travel and exploration. You're not going to be given time for self-education, because your boss doesn't care about any of this. You're going to be working mostly to exploit, harm, kill, and disinform other human beings. And then you wonder, why is there all this evil in the world? Well, look at who's causing it. It's because most people in society are wage slaves who are just executing the orders of the people at the top, who are mostly doing it to exploit others so that they can become wealthy. And the easiest way to become wealthy in our pyramid scheme society is to exploit, harm, kill, and disinform. That's what a lot of work is about. Of course, except it's very carefully veiled and denied, and all of this is hidden under the surface, such that you're doing this work without even knowing that you're doing this work. It's unconscious. You're creating this evil unconsciously. That's what egos do. Egos run amok creating evil unconsciously. thinking that actually what they're doing is good. But they're just ignorant of what they're really doing. Most evil in society is done through unconscious work. I'm talking about the programmer working for Lockheed Martin, creating code for drones. I'm talking about the secretary working for Coca-Cola, selling poison to children. I'm talking about the HR person working in some big pharmaceutical insurance company, healthcare company that actively works in schemes to throw people off of health insurance, deny them benefits when they need it most, killing people and destroying their health. I'm talking about the doctor working for some giant hospital that overcharges patients for everything because that's their business model. I'm talking about the call center rep who works for AT&T or Verizon, who are scheming to destroy net neutrality. I'm talking about the cashier who works at McDonald's selling poison to people. I'm talking about the delivery truck driver for tobacco companies that deliver cigarettes to grocery stores. I'm talking about the web designer who works for a big oil company like ExxonMobil, creating their web pages of disinformation and contributing to propaganda campaigns, for example, against global warming, and so on. All of these are ordinary people. They have no idea what they're really doing. They're not connecting all the dots, and they feel completely disempowered. It's important that you understand the depth of your predicament and just how challenging of a problem this is for yourself and also for all of mankind. Then you will be in a position where you could really take back control, take responsibility, and make some changes. But before you get there, you got to understand what's really going on. I'm not trying to make you blame anybody here or to play the victim. That's very important to understand. A lot of people, when they start to learn some of these harsh truths about the nature of this system, they become political ideologues. And they say, okay, well, the solution must be Marxism or whatever. Let me go read Marx, and let me then go protest and do Occupy Wall Street and all this sorts of stuff. And while some of those protests are good, a lot of them are also very naive and actually are just a distraction from escaping wage slavery. I want to make sure that you don't take this as me trying to get you to demonize other people and blame them. There's nobody to blame here, and you're not a victim. I just want you to see the depth of the predicament that you're up against, because only then will you be able to take serious steps to change the problem. And you need to understand that it's not some one guy's fault or even some class of people's fault. It's not just the fault of the Republicans or the conservatives or the libertarians or somebody else or the rich people. It's not that simplistic. There's a lot more going on here. So you can never just blame somebody. This is a deep structure of all human societies. And it doesn't matter how you feel about this pyramid. You might say, oh, Lee, okay, fine. I'm not going to play this pyramid game then. I'm just going to go like join a monastery or some yoga ashram, and I'm going to work towards enlightenment and fuck this whole thing. I don't want to be part of this nasty pyramid. Well, if you go to one of these Zen monasteries or these yoga ashrams, what you'll discover is that there is a pyramid. So you think you've escaped, but you haven't escaped. And even if you do join an ashram or a monastery, it's still part of the entire web of society. You can't escape this. This is all encompassing. Unless you're going to go live alone in a cave by yourself and hunt and forage for your own food, you're going to be part of this system. So that's the bad news. The good news is that you can escape. And there are two basic strategies for escaping wage slavery. The first one is to become ultra creative and hardworking, with a powerful vision, a clear life purpose, and to become a massive value provider, an exceptional value provider to the world. You provide so much value to the world that your finances aren't even an issue anymore. You can develop yourself to be this way. Examples of this include popular singers and musicians, filmmakers, programmers, public speakers, artists, founders of various companies, inventors, designers, scientists. That's one way. Second way is to manipulate the system, to get close to the sources of wealth and power within the pyramid and exploit this pyramid to rise to the top. Obviously, I recommend option number 1. And the reason I recommend option number 1 is because there are some serious problems with option number 2. Option number 2 fundamentally is egotistical because it depends on manipulation and exploitation. It's unconscious, it's also rather lazy. You're not thinking about what you can offer the world, rather you're thinking about what you can get from the world. Oftentimes it leads to criminality of various kinds, gross forms of it, and also subtle forms of it like various kinds of white-collar crime. It leads to downright evil and selfishness, and it harms a lot of people. And also, it's just fundamentally unsatisfying. With option number 1, by becoming a powerful creative genius, you kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Not only can you handle your finances, but you get the thrill and satisfaction of offering something valuable to the world and helping to uplift mankind, and doing it in a way that you find meaningful and fun and exciting and that you could be passionate about. So if you're going to be taking option number 1, then here's how you escape wage slavery. First of all, you stop whining and blaming, and you take full responsibility for everything that's happening in your life. Everything. You do not have the luxury of whining and complaining and making excuses and playing victim. Everything in your life needs to be your responsibility because you need to be able to take control of it and change it by developing yourself, developing the skills, or whatever you need. You're gonna have to change yourself to turn yourself into this powerful creative genius. Then what you gotta do is you gotta figure out what you want from life. And you gotta be really fucking crystal clear about this. You should spend an enormous amount of time thinking about what you want from life. You need a very clear vision, a powerful, compelling vision that's gonna motivate you. This is not a short-term vision. This is a vision that will guide you over the next 10 to 20 years of your life. It's a big picture strategic plan for how you're going to escape this wage slavery. This is basically a vision for your career. This is a life purpose. This is what I call life purpose. You also need to decide if you want to be a sheep or a leader. To be able to follow through on this strategy, you're going to have to turn yourself into a leader, not a sheep. A leader means you're going to have to lead yourself and lead others around you. It means you're going to have to take extra responsibility beyond what everybody else is doing. You're going to have to work a little bit harder. You're going to have a better vision than everybody else. You're going to have to develop trust in yourself. You're going to have to stop looking to other people around you to validate you and to support you and to give you answers, but actually forge forward and seek the answers yourself. You got to also become a massive value provider. What does this mean? This means you have to train yourself in some way where you will provide an inordinate, disproportionate amount of value compared to everybody else, you see. Because really you only have 2 options in this pyramid scheme. Either you're going to exploit the pyramid scheme, or somehow you need to use your creativity, your God-given creativity. You gotta take that and utilize it and leverage it in such a way that you're able to give the world so much value that eventually they can't help but pay you for the amount of value that you're offering, and then you're gonna be able to buy your freedom. Real value is creative value, when you're able to come up with new solutions and inventions that solve serious problems in the world. That's what a real provider of value does. High-level thinking. It's abstraction. It's big picture. It's strategic. It's systems thinking, right? You're solving serious problems for mankind in some fashion. And the last thing I'll tell you is that it's not really enough to be enlightened. There's more to life than just enlightenment. Yes, enlightenment is great. Spirituality is great. But also, very practically speaking, I think a very important component or pillar of living the good life is, yes, you want to become hyper fucking conscious and you want to become enlightened, but you also want to engineer a conscious way of making a living. I think that that's a component that a lot of spiritual teachers miss. They just don't talk about it. But I think it's a really important component, because half of your waking life will be spent on work, whether you like it or not. Even if you're enlightened. You could be enlightened, but you could be working for, some gun manufacturer in some factory. And maybe you're cool with that, but I would suggest you would be even more happy if you were enlightened, and that also you had designed for yourself some sort of conscious way of making a conscious living and contributing to the elevation of mankind.